We are heading deep into the Appalachian Mountains, one of the most active and haunted regions in the United States. The paranormal in Appalachia is far more real than most people realize. Don't forget to subscribe, and let's take a look.
Growing up in Appalachia, we were always heavily warned to not attract the attention of a haint. The American South was full of haints and malevolent spirits because of all the tragedy that has happened in the American South, especially around the Appalachia area. We had the Trail of Tears. We had many of battles of the Civil War fought around that area. So all of this bloodshed and tragedy in such a very short amount of time would be the perfect breeding ground for a haint. Some ways you could attract them to yourself is by having an exceptionally negative and bad attitude. It could also be that you're talking to yourself at night or whistling at night outside, something you're never supposed to do. We used to always get warned to not attract these things to us because they can't bother you if you're not showing them attention back. So for example, one time we all heard this noise and me and my cousins, look at where the noise came from, and our grandpa's in the room and we're like, oh, did you hear that? And he said, nope. Even though he had looked when he heard the noise too, he didn't want to claim that he had heard the noise or heard that spirit, because if they can't get you to acknowledge them and give them power, they can't really interact with you much further. So they're looking for that fear or that surprise or whatever that emotion is. It's something they don't have and they can't feel anymore. These things go back, hundreds of years. They go back into Native American, folk tales and myths and legends that have been passed down. But in Appalachia, it's just very well known that if you're outside at night, you keep to yourself, you don't talk to yourself, you don't whistle, you don't do anything to attract any attention to yourself after nightfall. And the reason why you might hear or see about these things more in Appalachia than almost anywhere else in the United States is because there's a huge belief that all of our electronic devices and power lines and things like that interfere with the ability for them to manifest themselves. So the less electronic devices or interferences, the easier they can manifest themselves. Imagine them being like a radio wave. Okay, if there's a lot of interference, that radio wave can't come through clear. But when there's no interference, they come through clear as a bell. Okay, so a lot of old timers will tell you, you don't see as much supernatural and paranormal things anymore because of all of the devices around you. Everybody's got a cell phone in their pocket at all times, That's why there's this whole big, mystery of why don't you catch these things on camera very often. And it's because when they sense electronic fields, they can't manifest. It literally blocks them from doing so. So the belief is if you're out in the middle of the woods with nothing with you, you are way more likely to have experiences just because they can draw upon your life force instead of getting blocked from the electronic devices.
One night, Shane and I heard a strange noise in the kitchen. During these days, we lived in the downstairs of Granny and Papa's basement. The noise sounded like a sick cat, we thought, only because my sister's cats would sit in the window and meow. So we dismissed the sound. We heard it again, and at this moment, I said, that's no cat. The sound starts getting closer. Then the sound goes right by us. Right in front of us, travels by us, and went into the bedroom. And it was the sound of a little girl giggling as she ran by. We never seen her or anything, only heard her. And the hairs on my arm stood straight up. I knew there was a ghost girl. This ghost girl has many stories from this point, and a really old story of our great aunt seeing a dark-headed little girl standing in her bedroom when she lived in the same basement back in the 80s. Is it the same little girl? I think so. Is she still around? I think so.
So I have been seeing things or having encounters with things since I have been like 3 years old. Literally my earliest memories have to do with spirits. I don't know what you would call them. I don't know. I do think I had an encounter with a demon. I never say with the D because I feel like that is asking to bring things into your home. So I won't even say the Oogie Man either. Like I won't even say the first letter because I do not want these things in my house. So when I was like 3 years old, maybe 4, my mom was with my sister's dad at the time, and we were living in this house in West Virginia. And I'm from West Virginia, but it was a little town in West Virginia. So in this house, I have so many memories of things that happened to me there, like I guess with a ghost. I don't know. I still to this day do not know what they are. So one of the scariest memories that I have in that house was when I was little. I remember seeing something, I don't really remember what, but I remember crying and running to my mom's room or crying for my mom. I'm not sure how it exactly went down, but basically I ended up in my mom's bedroom. And I remember laying in bed with her. And I looked up at the ceiling, and I think there was a ceiling fan. I'm positive. From my memory, there was a ceiling fan in that room. And I remember looking up, and it looked like this big gargoyle was on the ceiling fan. So like basically it was like clinging onto the ceiling fan with its head sideways, so like I seen its face, and then it was like holding onto it, so it was like sideways holding onto it, and then like I seen its back and its legs like hugging the ceiling fan, and I seen its wings. And at the time obviously I didn't know what a gargoyle was, but like now as an adult with the memory of that memory, I know that it was a gargoyle. And it really freaked me out. I remember screaming and crying to my mom over that. It terrified me. And it was just like spinning. I don't know, I just seen it spinning, like looking up at the ceiling, and I just remember crying and being scared. And then another incident in that same exact house was, there was one night that I was asleep in my bed and I heard something. Like it sounded like a man was talking to me or something, like, I don't know. And I kind of like peeked like over my cover, and I seen someone standing in my doorway, but it wasn't like a person in my doorway. It was literally like, I don't know how to explain this. It was basically the outline of a person, but they were clear, but I could see their outline, and they didn't have hair or anything. Like I don't know how to explain it. It was literally a clear person with a dark outline. I don't think I would put it under the shadow people category, because I've seen shadow people before, and it's like more of a shadow, like black, and you see it as a blur. This was literally a person. Like it was like a tall man figure that was clear, but you could see that it was clear. Does that make sense? And literally the outline, I don't know how to explain it. It drives me insane because I literally have no idea how to explain it. So basically, that figure was standing at my bedroom door, and it was like asking me if I wanted anything to drink. It was like, do you want a cup of water, or do you want a drink of water? Like, are you thirsty or something? And I don't know why, but I was scared at first when I seen it, and then after it was like being nice to me and asked me if I wanted a drink of water. The only memory I have is me getting up and going to the kitchen. It disappeared. Literally, once I got up and got out of my bed, I don't have any memory of seeing it after that. But I went to the kitchen, and I remember there being a cup of water there, and I feel like the sink was on also. I might have turned the sink off. I don't know. I literally don't know. And I remember drinking the water, and then I went back to bed. And that was it. There was another time, too, that I have in that same house, that me and my cousin were sleeping in my bedroom, and the lights were off, and I don't know what happened, but we heard a noise. My cousin may have left at the point. I don't know if he stayed the night or not, but he was there. I don't know if he stayed the night. I want to say he stayed the night and he slept in my room, but I'm not 100% positive if he did. Maybe he just visited. But I remember I had a pink chair. Like, I don't know. It wasn't a beanbag chair. It was like a little round pink chair, with like little metal bars. It was like a little, I don't know, it was a mini chair. And I had Beanie Babies in it, but the Beanie Babies that you get from the Happy Meal toys back then. And it was like full of those little Beanie Babies. And I remember I was laying in my bed trying to go to sleep, and I heard like basically those Beanie Babies like fall or like hit the wall or something. Like they have a distinct sound if you throw them down. Like if you know, you know. So I literally remember like hearing them like hit the ground or hit the wall or something. And then I feel like my cousin was there. I want to say that me and my cousin turned the light on, and the chair was flipped over, and the Beanie Babies were on the opposite side of the room. I remember turning on the light and seeing that. And I think those are the only memories I'm pretty sure that I have in that house. We were not in that house long at all. We were not there long at all. My mom said that she also like felt things or felt like someone was watching her in that house. And she said that my grandpa had talked to her before too about how I would go to their house on the weekends and like cry to them about how I didn't want to go back to that house. So the proof is there. But that is literally my experience with something. And I just feel like something has like clung to me my whole life ever since that incident. And now that I'm speaking about this story to you guys, it will probably come back to bite me in the ass. Because whenever I keep quiet and I don't speak about that story, only that story specifically, whenever I don't speak about that story, about that house, if I don't talk about it for a year or two, nothing happens, nothing bothers me. But it's like after I talk about that story, things start happening again.
So I do live in the foothills of Appalachia, and anybody who has been here will tell you, been here with any length of time, will tell you that there's just something different about this area. It is very psychically and spiritually saturated. Particularly the area that I live in. The area that I live in was used for hundreds, if not thousands of years by Native Americans. There have also been Civil War battles here. I tend to know things before I should know them, and I tend to see things that other people don't that wind up being verified. You can believe me or not, don't really care. Anywho, about a couple months ago, I'm driving home from my moonlighting job, right? It's dark. I live way out in the boonies, like it's dark and nobody around. And I'm driving and some kind of motion catches my eye, right? Like there's something that's darker than the darkness that's moving. So I brake, and as I get closer, I honestly thought I was going to see a deer, right? Because at first I only saw movement. Once my headlights got close enough to hit it, it was a pair of legs, a man's legs. It was definitely a man's legs, but they faded away just above the knee. But I was literally watching this disembodied pair of legs from the knee down, like walk across the road. Like it was definitely human legs moving. I could make out the way the pants were cut at the bottom. I could make out that he was wearing boots. Like I wasn't crazy. I wasn't half asleep. I wasn't, I'd been at work. I hadn't been drinking. It was definitely a disembodied pair of legs that literally walked across the road and into the fields. Although I will say that is not the first time that I've seen something in that exact same area. Right next to the fields is an old, dilapidated, abandoned tobacco barn. I have no idea why it hasn't been torn down yet, but it hasn't. And I've driven past it in broad daylight before and seen a black shadow figure walking across the barn. And there's a tree right in front of it, like going behind the tree and then disappearing. And before you ask if any of this freaked me out, no. Shadow figures have come to be something that not just I, but my family have learned to live with because we see them all the time in our house. My kids have said that they've been standing in doorways, that they've peeked across the corner. I've seen, one walk by the door. I mean, we see them all the time. And they've never felt like they were trying to cause harm, and they've never intentionally tried to scare us. So we just have kind of made our peace with that.
My husband is a park ranger, and we live in Appalachia, and something really spooky happened to him the other day at work. So it was pretty late at night / early in the morning, and he was ending a shift, and he got a call from one of his fellow rangers, and she was like, "Can you please come to this park because I am so freaked out?" So he went, and she had literally driven up to the gate of the park and waited there for him for 30 minutes because she was too afraid to go all the way back into the park. And he was like, "What happened?" And she told him that she was closing up the headquarters building, and while she was outside, the lights inside of the headquarters building turned on by themselves, and then the motion detection lights on the other side of the building right outside outside the door also turned on, and no one was there, and it freaked her out. So my husband goes into the building and looks around. There's no signs of anyone being in there, no signs of any forced entry, anything like that. Nobody was there. So he finally goes back to his truck, and the windows start fogging up, and that isn't something that regularly happens, not at this park, not really anywhere. And it was nothing he did was making it go away. so he could barely see as he was driving. And he said that as he was this part might just be mundane, but it's still really creepy to me. He said as he was driving out, he saw something like through the foggy window. He could see something in the road, and it ended up being a giant, well, not giant, but like a big deer, like a buck, like just standing there staring creepily at him. And he said it creeped him out. So he left, and as soon as he left the park, like as soon as he left the property, the window is just unfogged. So I know that a lot of that could have like a mundane explanation. It's not necessarily 100% definitely paranormal, but like given the nature of what happened right before, and given the fact that like that's never happened to him before, and just the overall vibes that like were surrounding that whole situation, I just think it's creepy.
I actually have the craziest ghost story that directly affected me during college. So I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I went to a small Catholic college about an hour outside of the city in like a rural area in the Allegheny Mountains, which are a subsection of the Appalachian Mountains. So this is my college. It's St. Vincent College in Latrobe, PA, and as you can see, we have a basilica, like a church, on campus. We also have a monastery with monks and priests. Some of them are even our professors. And it's a beautiful campus. I had a great 4 years, but I am convinced that this place is haunted, and it's honestly like an open secret. Even the religious congregation and stuff, they don't deny it. So the faculty and staff and even like alumni and students have ghost stories and urban legends that they tell about the school, and they're just like kind of like a fun part of the campus culture. But there is actually like a lot of spiritual energy on this campus, mainly because there's a large religious influence, but also our dorms are right against a decently sized cemetery. My sophomore dorm was actually right up against it. And so what happened to me lasted a little bit over a year. It actually went from my freshman year into my sophomore year. So now you have the background on my college campus. But what happened to me was just a bunch of consecutive events. It wasn't like one big thing. And there was, of course, like a peak where things got pretty intense. So my freshman dorm had these things called pods, where just big living spaces for the same gender. So you had about 10 rooms on the outside of the pod, and then you had a living area and bathrooms and showers in the center. So there were anywhere from like 15 to 20 girls living in one pod. In our pod in particular, I experienced a lot of weird things from the start. Showers turning on whenever you walk into the bathroom. There was always knocking late at night within the walls. And this isn't coming from another room. Like, they were cinder block walls. You cannot knock to the other rooms, and it would also jump from wall to wall. Our rooms had really heavy wooden doors, and I remember this because whenever you would close them, like, it would kind of click, so you knew the door was completely shut. And all the time my door would just like open up. Also my closet, we had like closets that opened like this, like you pull them open. I would be sitting in bed doing my homework or schoolwork, and the closet doors would just like crack open or like slowly open while I'm sitting there, and I'm watching it like with my own two eyes. So one night I decided to have my guy friends over, and I had like one guy friend in particular, but these were like his friends. So they came to see my room and everything, and they were sitting up against my bed or like my desk, and I had a picture framed above my desk, and it had like the glass cover on the front. And so we're just sitting there talking, and this is like mounted to the wall, like it's not coming off. This picture, like, I very much loved this picture and did not want it to fall off the wall. So we're sitting there, and there is a guy directly under the picture. It just like all of a sudden comes off the wall. and breaks. And it wasn't even hanging there. It like was like boom, like off the wall. Everybody stopped what they were doing and were like, what? But we were like, whatever, that can be explained. Then one night, me and my roommate are walking through the graveyard just to go on a walk because that is our scenery. And I'm saying bye to my roommate. I'm like, I'm gonna go over to my guy friend's dorm so we can study for this chemistry test. So we're just sitting in his room studying. I'm kind of close to the door and we hear like a single knock on the door. And we're like, oh, let's not answer it. What if it's a RA? Like, we don't want to get in trouble. There's alcohol in the room. So we ignore it. 15 minutes later or so, there's 2 louder knocks on the door, and we're like, okay, is someone playing a prank on us? So we wait a little bit, and then we open the door, no one's there. We're like, okay, someone's messing with us. Some more time passes, okay? And all of a sudden, there's 3 loud knocks on the door, and I'm right by the door. I swing it open and no one is there. Like, no one would have time to run away from the door. We would have heard them, we would have seen them. We're so creeped out, we get out of the room and we go to like the other rooms in his pod, and we like are like, hey, like, are you pranking us? These guys are like in bed, no one's up or hanging out in the living area. Everyone is like, no one's messing with you. What are you even talking about? We didn't hear any knocks.
These mountains hold centuries of secrets. Make sure to subscribe. And as always, stay safe, stay aware, and question everything.